Imagine a battlefield where no line is safe, not because it's weak, but because it's waiting. Summer 1943. By then, the Eastern Front had already devoured 2 years of war. Cities had been erased, armies had been broken and rebuilt, and millions of men had disappeared into snow, mud, and memory that no one had time to write down. The idea of a quick victory was gone. What remained was something slower, heavier, more dangerous, a war of exhaustion. And in that war, Germany needed something it had not had in months. Control, not a local success, not a temporary advance. One decisive victory, one operation that would prove that the Wehrmacht could still choose where the war would be fought and how it would end. They chose a place called Kursk. On the map, it looked like a mistake. A bulge in the front line, a salient that pushed deep into German-held territory, nearly 250 kilometers wide and more than 150 kilometers deep. To German planners, it looked vulnerable, something that could be cut off, something that could be surrounded, something that could be destroyed. If both sides of the salient were struck at once, north and south, the Soviet forces inside it could be encircled and eliminated in a single, controlled operation. A clean movement, a decisive result. The plan had a name: Operation Citadel. By the spring of 1943, everything that Germany still had was being prepared for it. Nearly 900,000 soldiers, thousands of artillery pieces, and more than 2,700 tanks and assault guns. This was not just another offensive. This was the largest armored concentration ever assembled for a single operation. And at its center were machines that represented the peak of German engineering. The Tiger I, the Panther, heavy armor, long guns, superior optics, greater range. At distance, these machines could destroy Soviet tanks before they even became a threat. On paper, the advantage was clear. German doctrine relied on it. Precision, coordination, shock, break through the front, collapse the defense, surround the enemy, destroy him. But Kursk would not be fought on paper. Months before the first German engine started, the Soviets already knew, not in vague terms, not as a possibility, in detail, axis of attack, timing, force composition. Through a network of intelligence sources, some on the front, some far behind it, some even inside German-controlled systems, the Red Army obtained a nearly complete picture of Operation Citadel. By April, Marshal Zhukov had read the reports. He understood what they meant, and more importantly, he understood what not to do. For 2 years, the Red Army had reacted to German offensives, moved after the fact, counterattacked when the situation allowed. But now, for the first time, they had something else: time and knowledge. Zhukov's recommendation to Stalin was simple and completely against instinct. Do not attack first. Let them come. It was not an easy decision. Waiting meant accepting the blow, letting the enemy choose the moment, letting him move first. But it also meant something else: preparation. If the Soviets knew where the attack would come, they could shape the battlefield before it began, and that is exactly what they did. What followed was one of the largest defensive constructions in the history of warfare. Not a single line, not a single trench, a system, layered, deep, structured, 8 defensive belts, each one designed not to stop the enemy immediately, but to slow him down, to absorb impact, to bleed momentum. Trenches stretched for thousands of kilometers, anti-tank ditches cut across expected avenues of advance. Strong points were built into the terrain, and beneath the surface, mines, hundreds of thousands of them, anti-tank mines, anti-personnel mines, placed by hand, field by field, meter by meter. One Soviet engineer wrote home in June, "We have been digging for 40 days. The earth here knows us better than our own families. I do not know what is coming, but I know that whatever it is, It will not pass easily. The Red Army was not waiting. It was building a battlefield. On the night of July 4th, something unexpected happened. A German engineer crossed the line. He surrendered. And he spoke. The offensive would begin within hours. The Soviets did not hesitate. At 2:20 in the morning, before the German attack could begin, they opened fire. Thousands of artillery shells rained down on German assembly positions. It was a calculated risk. If the information was wrong, the Soviets had revealed their positions and wasted ammunition. If it was right, they had just disrupted the most important phase of the German attack. It was right. At dawn, when the German assault began, it did not strike a sleeping enemy. It struck a front line that was already awake, already manned, already ready. In the north, General Model's Ninth Army advanced, slowly, deliberately, and immediately, at a cost. The first defensive belt did not collapse. It absorbed. Mines detonated beneath advancing vehicles. Anti-tank guns opened fire from concealed positions. Every movement forward required effort. Every kilometer gained required sacrifice. In the south, the advance was more effective. SS Panzer divisions moved with precision. Tiger tanks leading, Panther tanks following. Infantry advancing behind armored formations. They broke through the first defensive line, then the second. For a moment, it seemed that the southern attack might succeed where the northern one stalled. But success at Kursk was not measured in the first line, or the second. It was measured in momentum, and momentum was being lost. Because the Soviet defense was not designed to stop the Germans instantly. It was designed to slow them, to force them to fight again, and again, and again. Each defensive belt was not an obstacle. It was a delay. And delay in a mechanized offensive is fatal. A T-34 commander wrote at the end of the first day, "They came with everything they had, Tigers, Panthers, infantry. We lost half our crew before noon. But we held the line. The line did not move. I do not know how. It simply did not move." By July 11th, the southern German force had pushed deep enough to reach near a small settlement called Prokhorovka. It was closer than the Soviets wanted, close enough that the next move would decide everything. On the morning of July 12th, both sides chose to attack, at the same time. What happened that day cannot be reduced to clean numbers. Historians have debated the scale for decades, but what is not debated is the chaos. Hundreds of tanks collided at close range. Some estimates say 600, some say more than 1,000. The exact number does not matter, because the nature of the battle made numbers meaningless. At long range, German tanks had the advantage: better optics, better guns, better range. At Prokhorovka, there was no long range. Distance collapsed, smoke filled the air, dust covered everything, visibility disappeared. T-34 commanders opened their hatches, not because it was safe, because it was the only way to see. They aimed manually, chose targets by movement, by instinct. German crews, trained for precision engagement at distance, were forced into a fight they were not designed for. Close, confused, uncontrolled. The battlefield became something else, not lines, not formations, a mass, metal moving through smoke, fire breaking through dust, machines colliding in a space too small for the number of them. For 12 hours, the field burned. The Soviets lost more tanks. That is the record. But they achieved something else. They stopped the advance. The German line did not break through. It did not reach Kursk. It did not complete the encirclement. And for an offensive, stopping is losing. Chundi? A Soviet driver later wrote, "I could not see beyond the smoke. I drove by instinct, by sound. When I finally stopped, there was silence. I looked out. The field was full of metal, ours and theirs. You could not tell the difference." By July 13th, the situation had changed, not just at Kursk, elsewhere. Allied forces had landed in Sicily, a new front had opened, and Germany did not have the strength to fight everywhere at once. Hitler made the decision. Operation Citadel was over. The largest armored offensive in history ended, not with a breakthrough, not with a victory, but with a stop. In the north, it had lasted 8 days. In the south, 12. It achieved none of its objectives. No encirclement, no destruction of Soviet forces, no decisive blow. Only loss. Loss of men, loss of machines, loss of initiative. After Kursk, Germany would never again launch a major strategic offensive on the Eastern Front. From that point forward, it would respond, not decide. There is a version of Kursk that focuses on failure, on mistakes, on what went wrong. But that is only part of the story. Because Kursk was not just a failed attack, it was a successful defense. Planned, prepared, executed. The soldiers who dug those trenches did not think in strategy. They thought in tasks: dig, place, wait, hold. The crews inside the tanks did not think about turning points. They thought about survival, about distance, about the next shot. And yet, what they did shaped the war. For the first time on the Eastern Front, a major German offensive had been anticipated, prepared for, and stopped. Not by chance, not by luck, but by design. The Red Army, which had spent 2 years learning how to survive, had learned something else. How to absorb, how to slow, how to break momentum. And finally, how to win. After Kursk, the direction of the war became clear, not immediately, not dramatically, but steadily. West. And nothing that followed would change that. There are battles that decide outcomes, and there are battles that change direction. Kursk did both. Not in a single moment, but over days, over distance, over resistance. It did not end the war, but it ensured that from that point forward, the end would come from one side only. And the men who made that possible did not know it. They only knew the order. Hold, and they did. If this perspective on history matters to you, subscribe for more.